Senzu beans. By far one of the most useful items in the Z Fighter's arsenal. With the use of a singular bean, one's strength and stamina can be restored back to its peak. They play a huge part in the story, and without them, well, the story would look a lot more grim than it does now. Originally, I was gonna make a what if about if they never existed, but I ran into a wall, that being King Piccolo. So in this video, I asked the question, what if the Senzu beans went extinct? For this what if, we'll say that the beans could no longer be produced after the 5-year time skip between Dragon Ball and Z. As to how they went extinct, well, we'll just say that Corrin had a bad harvest, or Yajirobe ate one too many, or maybe a combination of the two. Either one works. I just want to see how far the Z Fighters can get without them. Starting off in the Saiyan Saga, a total of 2 Senzu beans were used, one to restore Goku's strength on his way to save Gohan and Krillin, and the other to heal Krillin's injuries and restore Gohan's strength. Without them, let's see what happens. When Goku arrives onto the battlefield, he'd be a little more worn out, but he'd still have more than enough energy to perform close to how he did in canon. So the fight between him and Nappa plays out as it originally does, and Nappa ends up in the same predicament after trying to attack Gohan. When the time comes for Goku to face off against Vegeta, seeing as Krillin is too injured to move and his heart isn't pure enough to allow him to ride on the Nimbus Cloud, Goku would have given Gohan the option to run or stay here. Either one would have been fine, just as long as Gohan stays out of the fight. Goku would then move the fight elsewhere so that Krillin and Gohan aren't caught up in the upcoming battle. And as the two Saiyans take their leave, Gohan decides to remain by Krillin's side instead of running away. The fight between Goku and Vegeta for the most part remains the same up until the creation of the Power Ball. You see, once Gohan sees this, just like in the original series, it would have piqued his curiosity. And when he notices that Vegeta's power has begun to rise dramatically, Gohan would have decided to aid his father, even in his tired state. However, before he leaves, Krillin would try to stop the young Saiyan, believing it's too dangerous, but he'd fail in doing so. Once he realizes that trying to stop Gohan is useless, he decides to inform Gohan about the Saiyan tails, as well as give him the remainder of his ki, trying to give him as much as a chance as possible against Vegeta. Gohan's energy would have been restored enough to allow him to move and possibly even fight once more, and with the use of the Nimbus Cloud, he makes his way towards the battle. Now, due to Gohan being much closer to the fight than he was originally, he'd arrived far earlier than he did in canon. How much earlier? Well, that's hard to know, but for the sake of this video, we'll just say that he arrives while Goku is charging up the Spirit Bomb. When he does arrive, rather than hiding out of sight like he and Krillin originally did, instead, Gohan calls out to his father as he enters the battlefield. Vegeta, who had been blinded by Goku's solar flare from earlier, directs his attention towards Gohan. Once he regains his sight, rather than immediately attacking Goku, he instead goes to attack the young Saiyan, believing that it would have been amusing to see Goku's face once he sees his dead son. While Vegeta is distracted, Goku uses this time to launch the Spirit Bomb at the Prince. Now, if you remember, the Spirit Bomb that Krillin threw at Vegeta was weaker than the one that Goku had initially tried to throw at Vegeta. This is due to Vegeta interrupting him from throwing it. But seeing as it didn't happen here, Goku throws a full-powered Spirit Bomb. Now, the question is, does this finish off the Prince? Well, no. You see, although the one that Krillin threw was weaker, it was used on a base Vegeta. Seeing as he's in his Great Ape form here, he'd be more resistant. However, it still would have done a great deal of damage to the Prince. Once the smoke clears, Vegeta emerges heavily damaged and furious that he took so much damage. He'd close the distance between himself and Goku, looking to continue their fight. Unfortunately for our hero, the gap between his power and Vegeta's is still too great. Even with this disadvantage, Goku still puts up a far better fight against Vegeta here, now that Vegeta's been weakened. And as the fight rages on, Gohan attempts to help his father, but Goku, wishing to fight Vegeta alone as well as keep his son safe, tells Gohan to run. Gohan stops in his tracks and is upset that his father won't allow him to help. As he's pouting over this, he notices something hiding behind a rock. It's a fat man with a sword. He notices Yajirobe trying not to be noticed and makes his way towards him. Once the two introduce themselves to one another, Gohan would question why Yajirobe hasn't bothered trying to help his father. And Yajirobe, being the guy he is, says, "Believe me kid, there's no way I'm going out there. These guys are a bunch of freaks." Back over with Goku and Vegeta, as the fight continued, Goku's body would have begun to fatigue due to him using the Kaioken to battle against the weakened Great Ape Vegeta. And the tides of battle would begin to favor the Prince. Vegeta would put Goku through the ringer, looking to get revenge for what he did to him. Gohan sees this and thinks of a way that he can aid his father, and remembers what Krillin told him about the Saiyan tails. Thinking of a way to cut it, Gohan's eye would catch Yajirobe's blade, and the young Saiyan begs Yajirobe for help, telling him that all they need to do is cut off his tail. Yajirobe hesitates and freezes up out of fear just for a moment, While this is going on, Vegeta begins to crush the life out of Goku. Gohan, not wasting any time, unsheathes Yajirobe's sword and with great haste rushes over to Goku and Vegeta. With one quick but powerful attack, Gohan cuts off the prince's tail. Now, as to why this worked here, in the original manga, Gohan made himself known in an attempt to distract Vegeta long enough to allow Krillin to try to cut off his tail. However, in this scenario, Vegeta is aware that Krillin can no longer move, seeing as Goku never gave him a Senzu bean, and since Gohan has a knowledge of the Saiyan tails, the right equipment to cut it off, as well as the element of surprise, then this would have happened. Once Vegeta's back in his base form, he'd be extremely upset that someone like Gohan was able to cut off his tail. In that same breath, he finds it amusing that Gohan still stands in front of him instead of running away. Both Vegeta and Gohan are far more exhausted here than they were in the manga. However, when the fight commences, Vegeta still has the advantage and begins to make short work of the young Saiyan. Once he has Gohan on the ropes, Vegeta begins to talk about how he's going to kill his father next and make sure that it's a slow and painful death. When Gohan hears this, his blood begins to boil and he clenches onto Yajirobe's sword with extreme force. He says sternly, "I won't let you lay a hand on my father." Vegeta chuckles at the remark, and Gohan in a rage attacks Vegeta with everything he has. As they fought, Gohan would slightly overwhelm Vegeta for a time due to the amount of power his rage would have given him. And eventually this back and forth would have ended when Gohan lands a lethal attack, impaling Yajirobe's sword straight through Vegeta's chest. Both the warriors stumble back in shock, Gohan surprised that he went as far as he did, and Vegeta surprised that it happened. The prince coughs up blood and realizes that this attack, on top of everything else he had been dealt, is finally catching up to him. Even after being inflicted by such a wound, he stumbled towards the young Saiyan trying to put an end to this fight. Gohan realizes this, and with the remainder of his energy, he releases a rage boosted Monsenko. Gohan would then fall to his knees exhausted, and when the smoke clears, Vegeta is barely able to move. And after that last attack, he decides that it would be smarter to retreat for now. Gohan, being too tired from his last attack, can only watch as the prince calls for his ship trying to escape. But before Vegeta can make his way to his ship, Yajirobe intercepts the prince, pulls his blade from Vegeta's chest, and goes to finish him off. Goku pleads for Yajirobe to spare Vegeta, however Yajirobe, not taking a chance, finishes him off. Now the reason I believe this would have happened here is because Krillin only spared Vegeta due to Goku saving the Earth and because of the friendship they shared. Yajirobe, on the other hand, isn't as close to Goku, and he would have thought about his own safety at the moment, being the guy he is. Although Goku would be upset, he'd eventually get over it. Once everything is said and done, they'd all be retrieved by Bulma, and after retrieving the other Z fighters' bodies, on their way to the hospital, they would have made note that Gohan's tail had grown back. Bulma, Krillin, Roshi, and Chi-Chi believe that they should cut it off out of fear of the Great Ape. However, Goku makes an argument that they should let Gohan decide, and after some deliberation, they all eventually agree. Fast forwarding a little, just like in the manga, they'd make a plan to travel to Namek. However, due to the lack of Senzu beans, both Gohan and Krillin would be far too injured to partake on the journey, and Bulma, refusing to go anywhere without protection, decides to wait until they're healed up, which at this point would have taken months. Exactly 4 months for Goku. As for Gohan and Krillin, it wouldn't have been as bad, but they would have been in there for a month at least. By the time that Gohan and Krillin are ready, Frieza would have already been on planet Namek collecting the Dragon Balls, and yes, Frieza still would have gone to planet Namek. Without anyone standing in his way, he would have collected the Dragon Balls in less than 1 day. Now the question is, would he be able to attain his wish, seeing as he usually killed every Namekian he came across, due to him not knowing that the Namekian language was required in order to make his wish? Well, I think he still would have gotten his wish. I say this because I feel as if Nail would have told either Frieza or one of his men that Guru needs to be alive in order for the Dragon Balls to work. He'd tell them this in an attempt to protect the Grand Elder from dying. You know, his job. Frieza, erring on the side of caution, decides to keep both Nail and Guru alive for the time being. Now having 3 wishes to himself, he'd obviously wish for immortality, and his second wish would be to be taller in all his forms, similar to the wish that he was trying to get in the Broly movie. As for his last wish, I believe that he'd remember what his father told him about Boo and Beerus being the only people he should never face off against. So in an attempt to be all powerful, he asks the dragon to be stronger than Beerus. However, this would be out of the dragon's power, so he goes for the next best thing, that being Boo, and the dragon would grant this wish. Once all his wishes would have been granted, Frieza would see the Dragon Balls as a potential threat in the future if he allowed them to remain. So even though Guru and Nail would have helped him in hopes of sparing their lives, Frieza destroys the planet anyway. Back on Earth, before Bulma, Gohan, and Krillin depart, King Kai informs them on what transpired on Namek. When they hear this, they'd obviously be upset, and they'd ask if there's a chance that a Namekian escape. King Kai would tell them no, and Krillin would plead to him to keep looking for something, anything, and King Kai agrees. He tells the Earthling that he'll look around the universe to see what he can find, believing that if they're lucky, they could find a Namekian who fled the planet before Frieza's arrival, maybe a case that's similar to Kami and Piccolo, a Namekian that fled planet Namek all those years ago. And with that, this puts an end to this part. But with that being said, let me know what you thought about this what if, what you thought I got wrong, what you thought I got right, and so on and so forth. But yeah, thank you to everyone that watched this video. I hope you have a good day. Peace, peace, deuce, deuce.